The sundown cast long shadows across the dusty street of Central City, Colorado, where Patricia Donnelly stood with trembling hands, watching her father's coffin being lowered into the hard mountain earth, knowing that she was now completely alone in a world that expected women to be fragile, delicate things who needed protecting. The year was 1878, and the mining town sat high in the Rockies, where gold still glimmered in the surrounding gulches, but fortunes came harder than they once had. Patricia was 22 years old, with dark auburn hair that caught the afternoon light and green eyes that held more determination than tears, even now. Her father had taught her everything he knew about ranching, mining, and surviving in this unforgiving territory, and she had no intention of letting his teachings go to waste. The small crowd of mourners dispersed slowly, offering condolences that felt hollow in her ears. She nodded politely, accepting their words with the grace her mother would have expected before consumption had claimed her 5 years earlier. Now both parents were gone, and Patricia was left with a struggling ranch 10 miles outside of town, a dozen head of cattle, 2 horses, and debts that made her stomach clench whenever she thought about them. Isaiah Thornton stood near the back of the cemetery, hat in his weathered hands, watching the young woman with something between admiration and concern etched into his sun-lined face. At 48 years old, he had 3 grown sons and a reputation as the finest rancher in the county. His wife had died giving birth to their youngest boy 20 years ago, and he had raised those boys alone, teaching them to ride, rope, and respect the land. His oldest son, Isaiah, stood beside him now, tall and broad-shouldered at 26, with his father's dark hair and serious gray eyes. Isaiah had noticed Patricia Donnelly long before her father took sick. She had a way of moving through the world that caught his attention, something fierce and capable in the set of her shoulders, the confidence in her stride. He had seen her break a horse once with patience and skill that would have impressed any seasoned wrangler, and he had watched her argue prices with merchants in town with a sharp mind for numbers and a refusal to be cheated. She was not like other women in Central City, who seemed content to let men handle the difficult things. Patricia Donnelly handled everything herself, and she did it better than most men he knew. His father had always taught him to admire strength wherever it appeared. Isaiah Thornton did not believe in coddling his sons or filling their heads with notions that men were somehow superior simply because they were born male. He believed in competence, in hard work, in proving yourself through actions rather than words. It was a philosophy that had served him well, and he had passed it to his children. "You planning to help her?" Isaac asked quietly, his voice carrying just far enough for Isaiah to hear. Isaiah turned to look at his father, seeing the knowing expression on the older man's face. "What makes you think she needs help? Everyone needs help sometimes. Pride makes us pretend otherwise, but the truth is the same regardless." Isaac settled his hat back on his head. Her father owed money to half the businesses in town. The ranch is mortgaged. Winter is coming, and she is alone out there. Isaiah knew all of this already. He also knew that Patricia Donnelly would likely shoot anyone who suggested she could not manage on her own. She had that kind of fire in her, the kind that burned bright and hot when challenged. She would not accept charity. Then do not offer charity, offer work, offer partnership, offer anything but pity. His father's eyes were steady, understanding. "You have been watching that girl for 2 years now. Either do something about it or stop torturing yourself." Heat crept up Isaiah's neck despite the cool autumn air. His father always saw too much, understood too much. "She barely knows I exist. Then introduce yourself properly." Isaac clapped a hand on his son's shoulder. "Life is short, Isaiah." Your mother and I had only 7 years together, but they were good years. Do not waste time waiting for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is the one you create. Patricia felt the weight of eyes on her as she walked away from the grave site, but she kept her spine straight and her chin up. She would not crumble, not here, not where everyone could see. There would be time for grief later, in the privacy of the small ranch house where her father's presence still lingered in every corner. For now, she needed to be strong, needed to show this town that she was capable of standing on her own. The problem was that she was not entirely sure how she would manage it. The debts were substantial, more than she had fully realized until she had gone through her father's papers. He had been a proud man, unwilling to admit when he was struggling, and he had borrowed against the ranch to pay for medicine, for supplies, for all the things that kept slipping through their fingers like water. Now those debts were hers, and the men who held the notes were already circling like vultures, waiting to see if she would fail. She would not fail. She could not afford to. The walk back to where her horse was tied took her past the Thornton men, and she nodded politely to Isaac, whom she knew by reputation if not by close acquaintance. Her eyes skipped over the younger man beside him, registering only height and breadth and dark clothing before she moved on. She had no time for idle conversation, no patience for the platitudes that people offered at times like these. Isaiah watched her pass, seeing the rigid control in every line of her body, and something in his chest tightened with respect, and something else he could not quite name. She was magnificent in her grief, refusing to let it break her, and he found himself wanting to stand beside her, to be someone she could lean on even if she would never admit she needed leaning. "Tomorrow," his father said quietly. "Go see her tomorrow. Offer to help with the cattle. Winter feeding will be a problem for her, and she knows it." Isaiah nodded slowly, already planning what he would say, how he would approach this woman who seemed determined to need no one. He was not good with flowery words or romantic gestures, but he was good with his hands, good with animals, good at the hard work that ranching required. Perhaps that would be enough to earn her trust if not her affection. The next morning broke cold and clear, with frost glittering on the ground and breath misting in the air. Patricia was already up before dawn, as was her habit, moving through the morning chores with mechanical efficiency. The chickens needed feeding, the horses needed tending, the single cow that provided milk needed attention. Her father's old dog, a gray-muzzled shepherd named Duke, followed her from task to task, his presence a comfort even though he could not help with the work. She was in the barn, forking hay down from the loft, when she heard hoofbeats approaching. Her body tensed instinctively. Visitors were rarely good news these days, and she had learned to be wary. Setting the pitchfork aside, she moved to the barn door and stepped out into the cool morning light. The rider was the tall man from the cemetery, the one who had stood beside Isaac Thornton. He sat his horse with easy competence, and as he drew closer, she could see his face more clearly. He was handsome in a rough-hewn way, with strong features and serious eyes that met hers directly. He did not smile or offer false pleasantries, which she appreciated more than he could know. "Miss Donnelly," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "My name is Isaiah Thornton. I am Isaac Thornton's oldest son." "I know who the Thorntons are," Patricia replied, keeping her voice level. "What brings you out here?" Isaiah had rehearsed this conversation in his head a dozen times during the ride over, but now that he was here, facing her direct gaze, the words felt clumsy. "I heard your father had arranged to buy winter hay from the Peterson ranch before he passed. I also heard that Jim Peterson sold that hay to someone else last week, leaving you short." Patricia's jaw tightened. She had not known that, had not had time to check on all the arrangements her father had made. Anger flared hot in her chest, but she kept it contained. "I will figure something out." "I am sure you will," Isaiah said, and there was no condescension in his tone, only statement of fact. "But I have hay to spare, and it seems foolish to let you struggle when I have excess. I would be willing to sell it to you at a fair price. I do not have money for hay right now." The admission cost her, but lies would serve no purpose. "I have debts to settle first." Isaiah nodded as if he had expected this. "Then perhaps we could work out a trade. You have a reputation for being skilled with horses." "I have 2 young colts that need breaking, and I do not have the time to do it properly. You break them for me, and I will supply the hay you need for winter." Patricia studied him carefully, looking for the catch, the angle, the thing that would make this offer less generous than it appeared. Men did not usually offer fair deals to women alone. They offered bargains that favored themselves, that took advantage of desperation. "Why would you do that? You could break those horses yourself or have your brothers do it." "I could," Isaiah agreed. "But from what I have seen, you would do it better. My father taught me to respect skill, regardless of who possesses it. You have a gift with horses, Miss Donnelly. It seems practical to make use of it." She wanted to argue, wanted to refuse out of sheer stubbornness and pride, but practicality won out over emotion. She needed that hay, needed it desperately, and this was a fair trade. More than fair, actually, if she was being honest with herself. "When would you need the horses broken?" "No immediate rush. Spring would be soon enough." Isaiah kept his expression neutral, though inwardly he felt a small spark of hope at her willingness to consider his offer. "I could bring them by in a few days. Let them settle into your pasture. You could work with them as your schedule allows." "And the hay? I can bring that over starting this week. It will take several trips to move it all, but I have the time and the wagon." Patricia chewed her lower lip, thinking through the arrangement. It was more than generous, almost suspiciously so, but his eyes held no guile that she could detect. He seemed sincere in his offer, and she needed help whether she wanted to admit it or not. "All right, but I want it understood that this is a business arrangement, nothing more. I will break your horses, you will provide the hay, and that will be the end of it." "Understood," Isaiah said, though something in his chest whispered that this would be only the beginning, not the end, of anything between them. Over the following weeks, Isaiah made good on his promise. He brought hay in his wagon, load after load, stacking it carefully in Patricia's barn while she worked on other tasks around the ranch. He did not linger unnecessarily, did not make small talk or try to insert himself into her life beyond the agreed-upon arrangement. He was respectful, efficient, and true to his word, which gradually earned Patricia's cautious trust. When he brought the 2 young colts, both beautiful animals with good lines and intelligent eyes, Patricia felt genuine excitement for the first time since her father's death. This was work she understood, work she loved. Horses made sense to her in a way that people often did not. They were honest in their reactions, clear in their communications, and they responded to patience and skill with loyalty and effort. Isaiah watched her work with the first colt from his position leaning against the corral fence, and he found himself mesmerized by her competence. She moved with quiet confidence, reading the animal's body language, responding to its fear and uncertainty with calm reassurance. There was no force in her methods, no harsh breaking of spirit. Instead, she worked with the horse's natural instincts, building trust gradually, rewarding the smallest signs of cooperation with praise and patience. "You do that better than anyone I have ever seen," he said when she paused to let the colt rest. Patricia glanced over at him, surprised to find genuine admiration in his expression rather than the patronizing approval she might have expected. "My father taught me." He believed that breaking a horse should not mean breaking its spirit. A wise man. Isaiah straightened, preparing to leave. I should get back to my own work. Isaiah, she said, the use of his first name feeling strange on her tongue. He turned back, waiting. Thank you. This arrangement, the hay, the work, it is helping more than you probably realize. You would have found a way regardless, he replied simply. You are not the kind of person who gives up easily. After he left, Patricia stood in the corral with the colt nuzzling her shoulder, and she found herself thinking about Isaiah Thornton in a way she had not allowed herself to think about any man before. She had been too busy for romance, too focused on survival and work to consider such things. But there was something about him that drew her attention, something steady and solid that made her feel less alone in the world. Winter settled over the high country with its usual harsh beauty. Snow came early and often, blanketing the landscape in white and making every task more difficult. Patricia worked from before dawn until after dark, tending her animals, maintaining her ranch and training the 2 colts whenever weather permitted. The hay Isaiah had provided kept her livestock fed, and she found herself grateful for his foresight every time she threw down a bale for her cattle. Isaiah did not visit as often during the deep winter, but he came by every few weeks to check on her progress with the horses and to make sure she had everything she needed. These visits gradually grew longer, stretching from brief check-ins to shared cups of coffee in her warm kitchen, and then to dinner conversations that lasted well into the evening. They talked about ranching, about animals, about the challenges of making a living from the land. They did not speak of personal things at first, both of them cautious and unsure of how to bridge that gap. It was Patricia who finally asked the question that had been hovering between them for months. They were sitting at her small kitchen table, the remains of a simple but hearty stew between them, and snow was falling softly outside the window. "Why did you never marry again?" she asked. "After your mother passed, I mean. Your father, he was still a young man from what I understand." Isaiah considered the question, appreciating her directness. "He loved my mother deeply. I think he felt that marrying again would be a betrayal of that love, and he was busy raising 3 sons alone. We were handful enough to occupy all his time and energy. That must have been hard for him." It was, but he never complained, never made us feel like we were a burden. He taught us everything he knew, treated us with respect, expected the same in return. Isaiah paused, then added, "He taught us that competence matters more than gender, that skill should be recognized and valued wherever it appears. It is a lesson that has served me well." Patricia understood what he was saying, the deeper meaning beneath the surface words. "Is that why you offered me this trade? Because you respected my skill?" "Partly." Isaiah met her eyes across the table. "But also because I wanted a reason to see you again, to know you better. I hope that does not offend you." Her heart beat faster in her chest, a flutter of something that might have been fear or excitement or both. "Why would you want to know me better?" "Because you are remarkable," he said simply. "Because you face every challenge with courage and determination. Because you do everything better than you give yourself credit for, and you do not apologize for your abilities. I find that incredibly appealing." Patricia felt heat rise to her cheeks, unaccustomed to such direct praise. Men usually found her capabilities threatening or off-putting, something to be diminished or mocked. But Isaiah spoke with genuine admiration, and something in his tone made her believe he meant every word. "I do not know what to say to that." "You do not have to say anything." Isaiah reached across the table, his hand open in invitation rather than demand. After a moment's hesitation, Patricia placed her hand in his, feeling the calloused warmth of his palm against hers. "I know you have no reason to trust easily, and I am not asking for anything you are not ready to give. But I want you to know that I see you, Patricia Donnelly. I see your strength, your skill, your determination, and I admire all of it. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility and promise. Patricia had built walls around herself over the years, protection against a world that expected her to be less than she was. But sitting here with Isaiah, his hand warm around hers, she felt those walls beginning to crack, letting in light she had not realized she was missing. The winter eventually gave way to spring, and with the warmer weather came new challenges and new possibilities. Patricia had successfully trained both of Isaiah's colts, transforming them from skittish young animals into well-mannered, responsive horses that would serve their owner well. The work had been satisfying, but its completion meant the end of her excuse to see Isaiah regularly, and she found herself reluctant to let go of the connection they had built over the cold months. Isaiah felt the same reluctance, magnified by the growing depth of his feelings for this remarkable woman. He had fallen in love slowly and surely over the winter, drawn in by her competence, her courage, her refusal to be diminished by circumstance or expectation. She challenged him intellectually, matched him in practical skills, and made him feel more alive than he had felt in years. The thought of returning to his ranch and seeing her only occasionally in town was unbearable. He rode out to her ranch on a bright April morning when the meadows were just beginning to green and wildflowers dotted the hillsides with color. Patricia was working with one of her own horses in the corral, and she looked up with a smile when she saw him approaching. That smile did something to his insides, made him feel simultaneously calm and agitated, settled and restless. "I brought payment for the colts," he said, dismounting and approaching the fence. "They are exactly what I hoped they would be. You did exceptional work with them. They are good animals, they just needed someone to show them the way." Patricia finished with her horse and joined him at the fence. "What payment? We agreed on a trade, hay for training. The debt is already settled." "The hay was fair payment for the training, yes. But I want to give you something more, something that recognizes the quality of your work." Isaiah pulled a small leather pouch from his pocket and handed it to her. "Open it." Patricia loosened the drawstring and poured the contents into her palm. Gold coins glinted in the sunlight, more money than she had expected, more than most horse trainers would charge. "Isaiah, this is too much. It is what the work was worth, what you are worth." He stepped closer, his expression serious. "Patricia, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen before you argue or refuse or put up those walls you hide behind." Her heart hammered in her chest, but she nodded, giving him permission to continue. "I have spent the last 6 months falling in love with you," Isaiah said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the admission. "I love your strength, your skill, your unwillingness to be anything less than yourself. I love how you handle horses with patience and understanding. I love how you face every challenge with your chin up and your eyes clear. I love that you do everything better than most people I know, and you make no apologies for it." Patricia's breath caught in her throat. No one had ever spoken to her this way, with such open admiration and acceptance. "Isaiah, let me finish," he said gently. "I know you are used to standing alone, to relying on yourself because the world has taught you that you cannot rely on anyone else. But I am asking you to consider the possibility of standing together instead. Not because you need me, but because we could build something better together than either of us could build alone." Tears pricked at her eyes, unexpected and overwhelming. "I do not know how to do that. I do not know how to let someone in. Then we will figure it out together." Isaiah reached out and cupped her face gently in his hands. "I am not asking you to be less than you are, Patricia. I am asking you to be exactly who you are with me beside you. I admire everything about you. Your father raised you to be capable and strong, and I honor that. I see what you can do, and I celebrate it rather than feeling threatened by it. What if I fail? She whispered, voicing the fear that had haunted her since her father's death. What if I cannot keep the ranch going, cannot pay the debts, cannot prove everyone wrong who thinks I should just sell and move to town? Then we will face that together too. But Patricia, I do not think you will fail. I think you will succeed at whatever you set your mind to, because that is who you are. And I want to be there to see it, to support it, to celebrate every victory with you. She searched his face, looking for doubt or insincerity, but found only steady certainty and deep affection. Slowly, carefully, she let herself lean into him, resting her forehead against his chest. His arms came around her, solid and warm, and for the first time in months she felt something in her chest loosen and relax. "I am afraid," she admitted quietly, the words muffled against his shirt. "I know." "So am I." Isaiah pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "But I would rather be afraid with you than safe without you." They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in the spring sunshine while Patricia's horse watched with placid curiosity from across the corral. When she finally pulled back to look up at him, Isaiah saw acceptance and hope in her green eyes, and his heart soared with relief and joy. "I do not know how to be courted," Patricia said, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I have spent my whole life learning how to ranch and train horses, not how to be romantic. Then we will learn together." Isaiah smiled back, and it transformed his serious face into something warm and approachable. "Though I should warn you that I am not particularly skilled at romance either. I know ranching and horses and hard work, but poetry and flowery language are beyond me." "Good," Patricia said firmly. "I have no patience for flowery language anyway. Say what you mean and mean what you say. That is all I need." "Then I mean this. I love you, Patricia Donnelly. I want to court you properly, to build a life with you, to stand beside you as an equal partner in all things. Will you give me that chance?" Patricia took a deep breath, feeling as though she were standing at the edge of a precipice, about to leap into the unknown. But Isaiah's eyes were steady and sure, and his hands were warm where they held hers, and she found herself wanting to take that leap more than she had ever wanted anything. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, I will." The kiss that followed was gentle and sweet, a promise of things to come rather than a demand for immediate passion. When they finally parted, both were smiling, and Patricia felt a lightness in her chest that she had not felt in years. Over the following months, their courtship unfolded with the same practical honesty that had characterized their friendship. Isaiah courted Patricia not with gifts and grand gestures, but with steady support and genuine partnership. He helped her repair her barn when a spring storm damaged the roof. She helped him select breeding stock for his expanding herd. They worked side by side on both ranches, sharing knowledge and skills, learning each other's strengths and weaknesses, building a foundation of mutual respect and deep affection. The people of Central City watched this courtship with interest and some surprise. Isaiah Thornton could have had his pick of younger women, women who would have been content to keep house and raise children and leave the ranching to their men. Instead, he had chosen Patricia Donnelly, a woman who could rope a steer as well as any man and who had no intention of giving up her independence for marriage. Some folks thought he was foolish. Others thought it was the smartest decision he could have made. Isaiah Thornton was firmly in the latter camp. He liked Patricia immensely, admired her grit and determination, and appreciated the happiness she brought to his oldest son. When Isaiah came to him one evening in late summer to ask for his blessing to propose marriage, Isaac gave it without hesitation. "She is perfect for you," the older man said, clasping his son's shoulder. "She challenges you, matches you, makes you better. That is what a good partnership should be." "I am glad you approve." Isaiah felt relief wash through him, though he had been reasonably certain of his father's response. "I plan to ask her next week when we take the cattle up to the high pastures. Does she know you plan to propose?" "Not specifically, but I think she expects it. We have been talking about combining the ranches, about building a future together. Marriage is the logical next step." Isaac laughed, a deep, warm sound. "Son, marriage should be about more than logic. I hope you plan to tell that girl how much you love her when you propose, not just present it as a practical arrangement." Isaiah had the grace to look embarrassed. "Of course I will tell her I love her. I tell her that regularly. But Patricia appreciates practicality. She values honesty over romantic gestures. She also values being valued," Isaac said more seriously. "Make sure she knows that you see her as more than a capable ranch hand or business partner. Make sure she understands that you admire her, desire her, want to build a life with her because she makes your world better in ways that have nothing to do with how well she can train a horse." "I will," Isaiah promised. "I do see all of that. I just need to make sure I express it clearly." The following week, Isaiah and Patricia drove a portion of her cattle up to higher elevation for summer grazing, a journey that took them through some of the most beautiful country in Colorado. The mountain meadows were lush with grass, wildflowers painted the hillsides in vibrant colors, and the air was thin and clean and sweet with the scent of pine and sage. They made camp beside a clear stream, the cattle settled and grazing peacefully nearby. Patricia cooked dinner over the fire, simple food that tasted extraordinary in the mountain air, and they ate while watching the sun set behind the distant peaks, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple and gold. "I love it up here," Patricia said softly, leaning back against a fallen log and gazing at the emerging stars. "It makes everything else seem small and manageable." Isaiah sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "I love seeing you here in your element. You belong in this landscape, Patricia. You are as strong and enduring as these mountains." She turned to look at him, seeing something intense in his expression that made her pulse quicken. "Isaiah." "Marry me," he said, the words coming out more blunt than he had intended, but honest for all that. "I know we have talked about combining the ranches, about building a future together, but I want to make it official. I want you to be my wife, my partner in all things. I want to wake up beside you every morning and go to sleep beside you every night. I want to face whatever challenges come with you at my side, and I want to celebrate every success together." Patricia's breath caught in her throat. She had expected this, had known it was coming, but the reality of the moment still overwhelmed her with emotion. "Are you sure? Marriage is permanent, Isaiah. Once we do this, there is no going back. I am more sure of this than I have been of anything in my life." Isaiah took her hands in his grip warm and strong. "Patricia, you are the most remarkable woman I have ever known. You do everything with skill and determination and courage. You face every challenge head-on and refuse to be diminished by anyone's expectations. I love that about you. I love how you handle horses, how you manage your ranch, how you stand up for yourself and what you believe in. I love your strength, your independence, your unwillingness to apologize for being competent and capable." Tears spilled down Patricia's cheeks, but she was smiling through them. "I love you too. I never thought I would find someone who saw my abilities as assets rather than problems. But you have supported me from the beginning, respected my skills, treated me as an equal. You make me feel valued in a way I have never felt before." "Then say yes," Isaiah urged gently. "Say you will marry me, that we will build this life together as true partners." "Yes," Patricia said, laughing through her tears. Yes, absolutely yes. Isaiah pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that had been building between them for months. This was not the gentle, careful kiss of their first embrace, but something deeper and more intense, a promise of the physical intimacy that would come with marriage. When they finally parted, both were breathing hard, and Patricia felt heat pooling in her belly, anticipation mixed with nervousness. "I want to do this properly," Isaiah said, his voice rough with desire and restraint. "I want to marry you in front of our families and friends, to make vows before God and community. Can you wait that long?" Patricia appreciated his respect for propriety, even as her body yearned for more immediate satisfaction. "I can wait, but not too long, Isaiah. I am not a patient woman," he laughed, kissing her forehead. "Then we will plan a wedding for late September after the harvest is in and before the weather turns. 2 months. Can you manage 2 months?" "I can manage anything," Patricia said with mock severity. "You should know that about me by now." "I do know it, and I love it about you." They spent that night under the stars, holding each other close, but maintaining the boundaries they had set, talking about their future together. They discussed how to combine their ranches, how to manage the workload, how to handle their finances and property. They talked about children, about whether they wanted them and how many. And Patricia was relieved when Isaiah said he wanted several but would leave the timing and number up to her, respecting her body and her choices. "You will be an incredible mother," he said, stroking her hair as she lay with her head on his chest. "Strong, capable, teaching our children to value competence and hard work over gender stereotypes." "You will be an incredible father," Patricia responded. "Patient, supportive, respecting our children as individuals rather than trying to force them into predetermined roles." "We will figure it out together," Isaiah said, a phrase that had become something of a motto for them. "Just like we figure out everything else." When they returned to Central City, a few days later, news of their engagement spread quickly through the town. Reactions were mixed, but mostly positive. The merchants who held notes on Patricia's ranch were relieved that she would have Isaiah's financial backing, which made their investments more secure. The other ranchers respected the match, recognizing it as a smart business decision as well as a romantic one. The women of the town were divided, some admiring Patricia's independence and strength. Others scandalized that she refused to give up her ranching work after marriage. Patricia ignored the gossip and focused on preparing for her wedding. She had no mother or sisters to help her, but Isaiah's father proved surprisingly helpful, and several women from neighboring ranches offered their assistance with cooking and decorating. The wedding would be simple but meaningful, held at the small church in Central City with a reception at the Thornton Ranch afterward. As September approached, Patricia found herself growing increasingly nervous and excited in equal measure. She was ready to marry Isaiah, confident in their love and partnership, but the magnitude of the change still overwhelmed her sometimes. She would no longer be Patricia Donnelly, alone in the world. She would be Patricia Thornton, part of a family, connected to other people in ways both wonderful and frightening. The night before the wedding, Isaiah Thornton invited Patricia to dinner at his ranch, asking Isaiah to make himself scarce for the evening. Patricia arrived uncertain what to expect, but the older man greeted her warmly and ushered her into his comfortable kitchen. "I wanted to talk to you alone," Isaac explained, pouring them both coffee. "Tomorrow you will become my daughter, and there are some things I want to say to you first." Patricia sat down, curious and a bit apprehensive. "All right." Isaac settled across from her, his weathered face serious but kind. "I have watched you over the past year, seen how you handle yourself and your responsibilities. You are a remarkable woman, Patricia. Your father would be proud of what you have accomplished." She felt her throat tighten at the mention of her father. "I hope so. I have tried to honor his teachings. You have done more than that. You have proven that everything he taught you was worthwhile, that his belief in your abilities was well-founded." Isaac paused, choosing his words carefully. "I want you to know that I see your value not just as a skilled rancher or horse trainer, but as a person. You bring out the best in my son. You challenge him, support him, love him. That is worth more than any skill or capability." "Thank you," Patricia whispered, moved by his words. "I also want you to know that you do not have to change who you are to be part of this family. Isaiah loves you exactly as you are, and so do I. If you want to keep ranching, keep training horses, keep being the strong, independent woman you have always been, we will support that. Marriage should enhance your life, not diminish it." Tears spilled down Patricia's cheeks. "I have been worried about that. People keep telling me I will need to settle down, to focus on house and home, to give up the work I love." "Those people are fools," Isaac said bluntly. "You and Isaiah will build your marriage your own way, based on mutual respect and partnership. Anyone who has a problem with that can keep their opinions to themselves." Patricia laughed through her tears. "I can see where Isaiah gets his directness, and his respect for competence regardless of who possesses it. I raised my sons to value skill and character over superficial attributes. Isaiah found those qualities in you, and he was smart enough to recognize their worth." Isaac reached across the table and patted her hand. "Welcome to the family, Patricia. I am honored to call you my daughter." The wedding day dawned clear and cool. Perfect autumn weather with golden leaves falling from the aspens and crisp mountain air that smelled of pine and approaching winter. Patricia dressed carefully in a simple but elegant dress that she had purchased in town, deep blue rather than traditional white, with lace at the collar and cuffs. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back, someone softer and more vulnerable than she usually allowed herself to be. Isaiah's younger brothers, Isaac Jr. and Ian, both in their early 20s, arrived to escort her to the church. They were good men, raised with the same values as their older brother, and they treated Patricia with respect and genuine affection. "Our brother is the luckiest man in Colorado," Ian said with a grin as he helped her into the wagon. "And he knows it." The church was full when they arrived, packed with ranchers and townspeople who had come to witness this unusual union. Patricia walked down the aisle alone, her chin up and her stride confident, refusing to be given away like property. She was making this choice of her own free will, entering this partnership as an equal, and she wanted that clear from the beginning. Isaiah waited for her at the altar, dressed in his best suit with his hair slicked back and his eyes shining with love and admiration. When she reached his side, he took her hands in his and squeezed gently, a gesture of support and affection that calmed her racing heart. The ceremony was brief and traditional, but when they reached the vows, Isaiah asked the minister to wait a moment. Turning to face Patricia fully, he spoke words that were not part of the standard service but came from his heart. "Patricia, I vow to love you exactly as you are, to celebrate your strengths rather than feeling threatened by them, to support your dreams and goals as fiercely as I support my own. I vow to be your partner in all things, to work beside you rather than above you, to respect your opinions and value your contributions. I vow to honor the remarkable woman your father raised you to be, and to never ask you to be less than yourself. This is my promise to you for all the days of my life." Patricia felt tears streaming down her face, but her voice was steady when she responded. "Isaiah, I vow to love you with all my heart, to stand beside you through every challenge and celebrate every joy. I vow to be your partner and companion, to share my life and myself with you completely. I vow to trust you with my vulnerabilities, to let you see the parts of myself I usually keep hidden. I vow to build a life with you based on honesty, respect, and deep affection. This is my promise to you for all the days of my life. When the minister finally pronounced them husband and wife, Isaiah kissed Patricia with gentle reverence, and the church erupted in applause and cheers. They walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, beginning their new life as partners in every sense of the word. The reception at the Thornton Ranch was lively and joyful, with abundant food and drink and music for dancing. Patricia, who had never been particularly social, found herself enjoying the celebration more than she had expected. It felt good to be surrounded by people who were genuinely happy for her, who supported this marriage and saw it as the blessing it was. As the evening wore on and the sun set behind the mountains, Isaiah found Patricia standing alone on the porch, looking out at the darkening landscape. He came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. "Happy," he murmured into her hair. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Patricia admitted, leaning into his strength. "I never imagined I would find someone who understood me the way you do." "I am the lucky one," Isaiah countered. "You could have chosen anyone, but you chose me. You trusted me with your heart, your life, your future. I do not take that lightly." Patricia turned in his arms to face him. "When do we leave for our own place?" They had decided to live at her ranch initially, as it was smaller and needed more attention, though they would eventually build a larger house to accommodate the combined operations of both properties. "Whenever you are ready. The wagon is packed, the horses are hitched. We can slip away now if you want. Let us say goodbye to your father first. He has been so kind to me." They found Isaac inside, talking with some of the neighboring ranchers. When he saw them approaching, he smiled and excused himself from the conversation. "Leaving already?" "We are," Isaiah confirmed. "Thank you for everything, Father, for this celebration, for your support, for welcoming Patricia into our family." Isaac pulled Patricia into a warm hug. "You take care of each other, and remember, you are always welcome here if you need anything." "Thank you," Patricia said, her voice thick with emotion, "for everything, for raising Isaiah to be the man he is, for accepting me as I am. It was my pleasure." Isaac released her and shook his son's hand. "Now go start your life together and do not be strangers." The ride to Patricia's ranch, their ranch now, took about an hour through the cool evening air. They did not talk much, both lost in their own thoughts and anticipations. When they finally arrived, Isaiah unhitched the horses while Patricia lit lamps inside the house, filling it with warm, golden light. When Isaiah came inside, he found Patricia standing in the middle of the small kitchen, looking uncertain for the first time since he had known her. He went to her immediately, taking her hands in his. "We do not have to do anything you are not ready for," he said gently. "We have the rest of our lives together. There is no rush." Patricia appreciated his consideration, but she was ready for this next step. "I want this. I want you." "I am just nervous. I have never been with anyone before." "Neither have I," Isaiah admitted, and her eyes widened in surprise. "I wanted to wait for the right person, and I am glad I did. We will figure this out together, just like we figure out everything else." That made Patricia smile, easing some of her tension. "Together," she agreed. What followed was tender and sweet, two people learning each other with patience and care. Isaiah was gentle, attentive to Patricia's responses, making sure she was comfortable every step of the way. Patricia was surprised by the intensity of her own desire, the way her body responded to Isaiah's touch. the pleasure that built and crested and left her breathless and satisfied. Afterward, they lay tangled together in her bed, their bed now, and Patricia felt a contentment she had never experienced before. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I never thought I would feel this way about anyone." "I love you too," Isaiah responded, pressing a kiss to her temple. "And I will spend the rest of my life proving it to you." The first year of their marriage was busy and productive. They worked side by side to improve both ranches, gradually integrating the operations into a single, more efficient enterprise. Patricia continued to train horses, developing a reputation that brought customers from surrounding counties. Isaiah handled the cattle operation, expanding their herd and improving their breeding stock. Together, they made decisions about finances, investments, and long-term planning, functioning as true equals in every aspect of their business and their lives. There were challenges, of course. Some people in town still disapproved of Patricia's refusal to conform to traditional female roles. Some of the other ranchers made comments about Isaiah being hen-pecked or letting his wife wear the pants. Isaiah ignored them with the same easy confidence he brought to everything else, secure in his own masculinity and untroubled by anyone's opinions about his marriage. Patricia struggled more with the criticism, her old defensiveness rising up when people questioned her choices. But Isaiah was always there to remind her that their opinions did not matter, that the only people who needed to be satisfied with their marriage were the two of them. "You do everything better than most people I know," he told her one evening after she came home upset about comments she had overheard in town. "And I am not sorry about that. I am proud of you, proud to be your husband, proud of what we have built together. Anyone who has a problem with it can answer to me." Patricia kissed him fiercely, grateful for his unwavering support. "What did I do to deserve you? You were yourself," Isaiah said simply. "That was always enough." As their first anniversary approached, Patricia realized that her monthly courses had not come. At first, she thought it was just stress or changes in her body from the hard work, but when a second month passed without bleeding, she knew what it meant. She was pregnant, carrying the child they had talked about wanting but had not actively tried to prevent or pursue. She told Isaiah one evening when they were sitting together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. "I am going to have a baby," she said, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "Our baby." Isaiah went very still, processing this information. Then a smile spread across his face, transforming him into someone younger and more carefree than she usually saw. "Really? You are sure?" "As sure as I can be without seeing a doctor, but yes, I am quite certain." Isaiah pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "This is wonderful news, incredible news. How do you feel about it? Excited? Nervous? A bit overwhelmed?" Patricia leaned back to look at him. "Everything will change now." "Some things will change," Isaiah agreed, "but not the important things. You will still be the same remarkable woman I married. You will still be capable and strong and independent. You will just be doing all of that while growing our child." Patricia had worried that pregnancy might make Isaiah see her as fragile or helpless, but his attitude remained the same as always. He supported her continued work on the ranch, adjusting tasks as her body changed, but never suggesting that she should stop entirely. When she could no longer comfortably mount a horse, she worked with them from the ground. When heavy lifting became difficult, Isaiah and his brothers took over those tasks without making her feel weak or useless. Isaac Thornton was thrilled about becoming a grandfather, and he visited frequently to check on Patricia and offer advice from his own experience raising children alone. "You will be a wonderful mother," he told her. "Strong enough to protect them, wise enough to teach them, loving enough to nurture them. Your children will be lucky to have you." The pregnancy progressed normally, though Patricia found the loss of her physical capabilities frustrating at times. She was used to being able to do anything, and the limitations imposed by her growing belly chafed against her independent nature. Isaiah was endlessly patient with her mood swings and frustrations, never making her feel inadequate even when she felt like a burden. "You are growing our child," he reminded her whenever she complained about not being able to do as much work. "That is the most important job there is right now. Everything else can wait." In early spring, when the meadows were just beginning to green and wildflowers dotted the hillsides, Patricia went into labor. Isaiah rode hard to fetch the midwife from town, then stayed by Patricia's side throughout the long, difficult process of bringing their child into the world. He held her hand, wiped her brow, murmured words of encouragement and love, and never once left her side. When the baby finally arrived, a healthy, red-faced boy with a loud voice and strong lungs, Patricia wept with relief and joy. Isaiah cut the cord with trembling hands, then cradled his son with a mixture of awe and terror. "He is perfect," Isaiah said, his voice thick with emotion. "You did this, Patricia. You brought him into the world. You are incredible." They named him Peter, after Patricia's father, with the middle name of Isaac to honor Isaiah's father. Little Peter was a demanding infant, keeping them both exhausted for the first few weeks, but Patricia found herself falling utterly in love with this tiny person who depended on her for everything. Isaiah was a devoted father from the beginning, taking over household tasks so Patricia could rest and recover, walking the floor with Peter when he cried at night, changing nappies and giving baths without complaint. He approached fatherhood the same way he approached everything else, with practical competence and genuine care. As Peter grew from infant to toddler, Patricia gradually returned to her ranch work, adapting her schedule to accommodate motherhood. It was challenging to balance everything, but Isaiah's support made it possible. They took turns watching Peter, trading off childcare responsibilities based on who had more pressing work that day. It was not a conventional arrangement, but it worked for them, allowing Patricia to maintain her identity and skills while also being present for her son. Isaiah Thornton adored his grandson and visited often, delighting in watching the boy grow and develop. "He has your determination," he told Patricia one afternoon as they watched Peter toddle after the chickens in the yard. "And his father's steady nature. He is going to be quite the young man." "I hope so," Patricia said, smiling as Peter fell down, picked himself up, and continued his pursuit undeterred. "I want him to grow up knowing that he can be whatever he wants, do whatever he sets his mind to. With you and Isaiah as parents, he will learn that lesson well." As Peter grew older, approaching his 3rd birthday, Patricia found herself pregnant again. This pregnancy was harder than the first, complicated by the demands of caring for an active toddler and maintaining the ranch. Isaiah took on even more of the workload, and his brothers helped out regularly, ensuring that Patricia could rest when she needed to. Their second child, a daughter they named Penelope, arrived in late summer. She was smaller than Peter had been but equally healthy, with her mother's red hair and her father's serious gray eyes. Peter was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to help with everything from feeding to diaper changes, and Patricia's heart swelled watching her son's gentle care for the infant. With 2 children now, Patricia had to accept more limitations on her ranch work. She could not be out in the far pastures all day when she had babies at home who needed her. But Isaiah ensured that she still had opportunities to work with horses, to use her skills, to be the capable woman she had always been. They hired a woman from town to help with household tasks and childcare, giving Patricia the freedom to maintain her identity beyond just wife and mother. "You are still the most remarkable woman I know," Isaiah told her one evening after the children were asleep, and they finally had a moment alone together. "Nothing has changed that. You do everything better than anyone else, whether it is training horses, managing the ranch, or raising our children. And I am not sorry about any of it. I am proud of you every single day." Patricia kissed him deeply, grateful for his constant support and unwavering belief in her abilities. "I could not do any of this without you. You make it possible for me to be myself while also being a wife and mother." "That is a rare gift. You make me better too," Isaiah said. "You challenge me, inspire me, show me what true partnership looks like. We built this life together, and I would not change a single thing about it." As the years passed, their family grew and flourished. They eventually built a larger house to accommodate their expanding needs, a beautiful structure that combined both ranches' operations under one roof. Peter and Penelope grew into capable children who worked alongside their parents, learning the skills and values that both Patricia and Isaiah held dear. Patricia continued to train horses, her reputation growing until she was known throughout the region as one of the finest trainers in Colorado. People came from miles away to have her work with their animals, and she charged fair prices that reflected her skill and expertise. Isaiah supported her work completely, often helping with the training when his own schedule allowed, learning from her methods and admiring her patience and insight. Their marriage remained strong, built on the foundation of mutual respect and deep love they had established from the beginning. They disagreed sometimes, argued occasionally, but they always worked through their differences with honest communication and genuine willingness to see the other's perspective. They were partners in every sense of the word, sharing responsibilities, supporting each other's dreams, and building a life that honored both of their strengths. Isaac Thornton lived to see his grandchildren grow into young adults, passing peacefully in his sleep at the age of 73. His death was a loss that the entire family felt deeply, but they took comfort in knowing that he had lived a good life and had been surrounded by love until the very end. At his funeral, Patricia stood beside Isaiah and their children, grateful that this man had welcomed her into his family and supported her unconditionally. "He taught me everything important," Isaiah said quietly as they stood by the grave. "How to be a good man, a good father, a good husband." "I hope I honored his lessons." "You did," Patricia assured him, squeezing his hand. "You are exactly the man he hoped you would be." As Peter and Penelope grew older, they each found their own paths. Peter followed in his parents' footsteps, becoming a skilled rancher and horse trainer in his own right. He eventually married a woman from a neighboring ranch, someone who shared his values and matched his work ethic. Penelope showed early talent for business and numbers, eventually managing the financial side of the ranch operations with skill that impressed everyone who worked with her. Patricia and Isaiah watched their children's successes with pride and satisfaction, knowing that they had raised them well. Their children had learned from their example that competence mattered more than gender, that hard work and dedication were worthy of respect regardless of who performed them, that partnerships should be built on equality and mutual support. As they entered their 50s, Patricia and Isaiah began to slow down slightly, delegating more of the day-to-day ranch work to their children and hired help. But they never fully retired, both of them too passionate about their work to step away completely. Patricia still trained horses, though fewer than in her younger years, and Isaiah still oversaw the cattle operations, though he relied more on Peter's assistance now. They spent more time together, taking rides through the mountains they both loved, sitting on their porch in the evenings watching the sunset, traveling occasionally to visit other ranches and meet with fellow horse trainers. Their love had deepened over the years, evolving from the intense passion of youth into something steadier and more enduring, a bond forged through decades of partnership and shared experience. One evening, as they sat together watching their grandchildren play in the yard, Peter's children now, Isaiah pulled Patricia close and kissed her temple. "I have been thinking about our life together," he said. "About how it all started, with you standing alone at your father's grave, determined to prove everyone wrong. I was so scared," Patricia admitted. "I had no idea if I could actually manage on my own. But you would have. Even without me, you would have found a way." Isaiah's voice was full of certainty. "You are the strongest person I know, Patricia. You always have been." "I am stronger with you beside me," Patricia countered. "You gave me permission to be myself fully, without apology or limitation. You celebrated my abilities instead of feeling threatened by them. That changed everything." "The Cowboy's oldest said the woman did everything better," Isaiah said softly, "and he said she did, and he was not sorry." Patricia turned to look at him, seeing the deep love and admiration in his eyes, the same expression he had worn that first day when he had offered her hay in exchange for horse training, when he had seen her skills and valued them rather than feeling diminished by them. "You really believe that?" "I have always believed it. You are exceptional, Patricia Thornton. You do everything with skill and dedication and courage. You are an incredible rancher, horse trainer, wife, mother, grandmother. And I have never been sorry about any of it. I am proud to stand beside you, proud to be your partner, proud to tell everyone who will listen that you do everything better than most people I know." Tears filled Patricia's eyes, happy tears born of decades of love and support and genuine partnership. "I love you, Isaiah Thornton. Thank you for seeing me, for valuing me, for building this beautiful life with me." "The pleasure has been entirely mine," Isaiah said, kissing her softly, "and I would do it all again in a heartbeat." As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple and gold, Patricia and Isaiah sat together, surrounded by the family they had built and the life they had created. It was not a conventional life, not by the standards of their time and place, but it was their life, built on mutual respect and deep love, and the fundamental belief that capability and strength were worthy of celebration regardless of who possessed them. Their grandchildren would grow up hearing stories about their grandmother who could train any horse, who ran a ranch as well as any man, who never apologized for being skilled and competent. They would hear about their grandfather who celebrated his wife's abilities, who supported her dreams, who believed that true partnership meant standing beside someone as an equal rather than above them in hierarchy. And perhaps those grandchildren would carry those lessons forward into their own lives, building relationships based on mutual respect rather than outdated gender roles, celebrating competence wherever they found it, creating a world where people were valued for their abilities and character, rather than being limited by expectations of what they should be based on whether they were born male or female. It was a legacy worth leaving, Patricia thought as she leaned against Isaiah's shoulder and watched their grandchildren play. A legacy built not just on land or wealth or material success, but on the fundamental belief that people should be free to be their best selves, should be celebrated for their strengths, should never have to apologize for being capable and skilled. Isaiah tightened his arm around her, and she felt the steady beat of his heart, the warmth of his body, the solid presence that had been her anchor for more than 30 years. They had built something beautiful together, something that would endure long after they were gone. The Cowboy's oldest had said the woman did everything better, and he had said she did, and he was not sorry. He never would be, not for a single moment of the life they had shared, the partnership they had forged, the love they had built that would echo through generations to come. As darkness fell and stars began to appear in the vast Colorado sky, Patricia and Isaiah remained on their porch, holding each other close, content in the knowledge that they had lived well and loved deeply. Their story was not over yet, but they had already achieved everything that mattered. They had found each other, built a life together, raised a family, and created a legacy of mutual respect and genuine partnership that would outlast them both. And if anyone ever questioned whether it was right for a woman to be skilled and competent, whether it was appropriate for a man to celebrate rather than compete with his wife's abilities, whether true partnership could exist between people who society said should exist in hierarchy, Patricia and Isaiah's life together stood as proof that love and respect and mutual admiration could create something more beautiful and enduring than any traditional arrangement ever could. They had proven that together, day by day, year by year, moment by moment, for more than 3 decades. And they would continue proving it for however many years they had left, standing side by side as they always had, partners in every sense of the word, bound together by love and respect, and the fundamental belief that together they were stronger than either could ever be alone. The story of the cowboy's oldest son and the woman who did everything better was not just their story. It was a testament to what could be achieved when people saw past convention to recognize true worth, when they valued capability over conformity, when they built their lives on foundations of mutual respect rather than arbitrary hierarchy. And as Patricia and Isaiah grew old together, surrounded by the family they had raised and the legacy they had built, they knew with absolute certainty that they had made the right choices, followed the right path, built the right kind of life. They had loved fiercely and well, supported each other completely, and created something that would endure. That was more than enough. That was everything.